Hello and welcome back to today's video. Today we're going to be talking about the new Chinese heavy tank, the BZ-72-1. It's going to be available through the new auction in 2024. It's a very similar tank to the BZ-75, but with some key differences that I'm going to talk about through this video. Firstly, I'm going to give you some equipment and field mods that if you do pick this tank up, you can get right into playing if you take. And then I'm going to give you my idea and my opinion on whether I think this tank's worth picking up so you can decide yourself. So let's get into it. So firstly, let's talk about equipment. If you do pick this tank up, I recommend for your first loadout, you take hardening, V-stabs and rammer. Then once you play it, progress through the field mods and you get the option to choose a second loadout. I recommend you take hardening, turbo and rammer. This tank has similar gun handling stats to the BZ-75, which is the tech tree Chinese heavy tank. It's okay, but it is definitely going to be lacking at times, so do be aware of that. So the V-stabs is the first loadout, will just make the gun feel a lot more comfy. And then for the second loadout, taking the turbo, you'll use that on more city-based maps potentially, or slightly more open maps where you want to get into an early game position. Use the rockets of this tank, because just like the tech tree BZ, this has some rockets on the back. So take the turbo, get into position faster, take the V-stabs if you want to have kind of more comfy gun handling, but it's all down to preference. If you're more of an aggressive player, take the turbo. Maybe if you kind of want to play it a bit more passively, take the V-stabs. Let's move on to talking about the field mods now. So let's talk about field mods for this tank. Firstly, I recommend you take lightweight suspension. Second, parallax adjustment. Third, periscope electric drive. Fourth, power supply rewiring setup 1, and finally take yourself a reinforced platform. And don't forget about the bonus slot which you can choose on this tank, either mobility or firepower. Don't forget for that equipment, if you are taking that turbo and it's a standard one, pop it in the mobility slot and pop your rammer in the firepower slot. That's what I recommend. So now let's move on to my opinion on this tank. I'm going to tell you whether I think this tank's worth it. I'll talk a little bit about statistics, but more give my general opinion on what I think this tank is going to be worth and whether I think you should pick it up. So, is this tank worth it? That's the big question I know you're all going to be asking. So, let me tell you what I think. Essentially, this tank is statistically a slightly better BZ-75. But it's also worse in certain areas as well. So, in terms of DPM, it's only marginally better. It has 80 more at 2,336. It's got slightly more base pen, literally 2mm more at 260. It's got lower alpha, so it's not a 650 alpha gun, it's a 560 alpha gun. It's got 0.02 better dispersion at 0.38. And it's got slightly better aim time at 2.4 compared to 2.78. So, gun handling wise and soft gun stats, it's marginally better than the BZ-75, but the BZ-75 hitting for 650 is just nicer than 560. It's pretty simple, but DPM wise, yes, it's slightly more, but is it so much more that it's drastically better? No. Forward speed, identical. They both have rockets, both got the same speed. So if you've played the BZ, expect this to be pretty much identical in terms of speed. Its armor is where it's different. So, hull armor wise, this tank is pretty considerably worse than the BZ-75. The BZ-75 kind of has that little bit of a pike nose, gives it decent frontal armor of 200. The BZ-72, however, only has 155mm, so you will find it lacking in terms of hull armor. However, it does have better turret armor. If you've played the BZ-75, you will have experienced, I'm sure, being penned through the flat face of your turret by a high pen heat shell. This tank will not have that issue because it has almost a 140-esque turret. It's very Russian-esque, the turret is, with it being very circular, so you won't have that issue, and it does have better base turret armor of 350mm compared to 330 of the BZ. So yes, it will still be penned with a high rolling heat pen, but you are very much not going to have those issues. Another thing to note with this tank, if you've played the BZ-75, it has 3 cupolas, all of which are pennable. As you can see by the little picture, it doesn't. This has 2 cupolas, one either side of the turret. They're pretty weak, 150mm effective, so do be aware of that. But In terms of hull down potential, this tank is pretty much going to be better than the BZ-75. They do have the identical gun depression angles of 8 degrees, so do bear that in mind. So it's not going to be drastically better hull down. It's going to be pretty much on par, because you do still have those cupolas, but having one less cupola is just better than not, basically. So, is it worth it? Yes, but would I go out and break the bank for this? Break the bank for this tank? No. No, I wouldn't. Pretty simple, really. Yeah, it's a good tank. It's going to be pretty much a carbon copy of the BZ-75, the tech tree, but slightly better in certain aspects. If you have millions of gold and hundreds of thousands, millions of credits and hundreds of thousands of gold, yes. Put a decent bid in and you'll probably pick it up. And yeah, it's probably going to be a collector's tank. But is it going to be competitive in randoms? Yes. Yes, it will be. Is it going to be straight up overpowered? No. The BZ-75 in its current state is pretty mediocre in randoms. It's got a more influential use in competitive gameplay, so we're talking clan rivals, advancers, and global map kind of competitive scenes. The BZ-75 is a pretty meta tank, so if you, for example, don't want to pick up a BZ-75 and you just wanted to pick this up, yeah, it's going to have some kind of competitive use, but the BZ-75, it's not going to, completely diminish the BZ-75. It's pretty much on par. It'll be down to FC's preference. It'll probably just become an alternative to the BZ-75, similar to what the S-Conk became of the Chief prior to the Chief's nerf. But this time, as kind of an alternative, it's pretty much on par. Would I go and break the bank? Once again, no. If you have the resources available, yeah, pick it up. Why not? It is going to be a good tank. I can see it being quite fun. It's BZ-75 with lower alpha, better gun handling, slightly more DPM, slightly better turret. It's going to fit into the meta quite nicely. So, to conclude, if you have the resources, pick it up. If you don't, oh well, you're not missing out. So, thank you for watching today's video. It's a little bit of a new style for me without the gameplay at the end, but, I wanted to get these videos out for you guys who are going to be participating in this auction so you can make an informed decision on whether to pick this tank up. So, if you liked, don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!